Game loaded.
So, hi everybody. Welcome to what should be the first of many uh, shows. Um, this is what I'm calling for right now script doctors. We talk about movies, television shows, video games. We talk about only the narrative and and talk about that and see how how we fix it, because it's very easy to talk about um, it's very easy to talk about criticizing something, but it's much harder to say, okay, oh, smart guy, how would you fix it, right? And with the announcement today of the remaster, the so-called Legendary Edition of Mass Effect today at being N7 Day, the sort of annual celebration of the Mass Effect series, I decided to talk about it. Um, I also wanted to say in my channel, the Mass Effect was dead. I'm not really retracting that statement. What I'm going to say about it is more of they brought out the corpse out of the freezer, pumped it full of chemicals, are going to sort of prettier it up, prop it up, and it'll be hot for about a couple of weeks, maybe a month, come, February or March or whatever, next year, 2021. And then everybody's going to forget about it, and that's going to be it. So let's start with the fact that, and this is going to be very critical, and by the way, I'm going to be critical of the series, but this is not meant as an insult to people who like aspects of the series. If you watch this here or on YouTube, for example, later on, this is not an attack on you, right? This is not scripted, by the way. It's called Script Doctors. Not attack on you as a fan. These are my opinions and my concepts, and if you want to join here on every Saturday night, hopefully, or over the YouTube channel in the comments, you're more than welcome, as long as you're respectful, of course. And we can have an open and honest conversation. So let's get started. And this is going to be the bombshell. I'm not going to start with the ending because that's, cart before the horse stuff. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the following controversial statement. And the controversial statement is thus: that something I said before on my YouTube channel, Mass Effect as a series of games, as individual games, it's a classic. That is, these are three games, not counting Andromeda. I'm sorry. If you're a fan of Andromeda, we're not going to cover Andromeda. We might cover Andromeda in a future installment, but not tonight. Mass Effect is a set of great games. In fact, I'm going to say even something more controversial. From a Ludo perspective, from a gameplay perspective, I think, which is usually the way I look at games, although that's not how we're going to talk about this series in this stream, it's that Mass Effect 3 is the best of the games. It has the strongest mechanics. It has the set of mechanics and the way you move with play and the powers and the abilities and the AI and the map construction, all that. The playing of Mass Effect 3 really pays off. Your character is very fast, nimble, has melee attacks. They're effective as I just go like, right? Everything seems to be well proportioned, like other games, especially the first game, etc., etc., etc. But that purple, yeah. Well, yeah, we're going to talk about it. Maybe talk about it some other day, Chapelmon, but not tonight. But as a trilogy, when you sort of mash them all together, right, they're supposed to be seen, and the remaster edition is basically going to be a remake of the special edition, which had all the DLC and all the extra things. So if you ever bought, like I did for Mass Effect 3, a version in a specific store so you can get a specific weapon or whatever. Well, now you're going to get all of them, because it's been, 10 years now, 12 years of the end of 2012. So about going about 8 years from Mass Effect 3, so don't worry about it. That also means you're going to get the Citadel DLC soon. That's another controversial position that I have. By the way, if you want to have more in-depth analysis of the Mass Effect 3 DLC, Citadel DLC, I suggest you go to Chapomon. That's Chapomon, who is also my co-host on my podcast, or our podcast, the Lesson Learned podcast on Mondays. I don't know if they define that the files of the Pinnacle Station. Probably. Or they might have, so many people don't remember the Pinnacle Station even exists. I didn't play it. I played it many years after it came out, But yeah, it wasn't a lot of fun. So people forget about the Pinnacle Station thing and the free house that you get at the end and some planet somewhere. And that was weird. That was a weird episode in the Mass Effect series. And the Mass Effect series has a lot of weird episodes. So that's my take, that Mass Effect 3 is the best and mechanically, and therefore the best game. But that doesn't mean yeah, I know it's just a series of remakes of rooms that you play in the original game maps, and you the talk about chapter one talk about that you don't miss much with the Pinnacle Station. Um, and then Mass Effect, the original Mass Effect, has the best story, meaning that Mass Effect 2 is overall the best game if you mash in story and gameplay, right? But as a trilogy, a narrative trilogy, as a cohesive, coherent story, the trilogy failed. It tried. It's I think the most, to this date, the most ambitious attempt at creating a long form narrative, or to attach or create a narrative around a story, or make a game that tells a long form narrative, coherent, consistent narrative. It was a good try. It didn't make it. And we're going to talk about that. Now, let's start with the original Mass Effect. The original Mass Effect, one could argue, is the best. It has some minor plot holes, but nothing that it's horrific. Thank you for that, chapter one. However, when you telescope to having an entire series, one of the problems is, and this is common to how you make most of this stuff, right? People say, "Oh, I had a plan for 5 years" or something like that. But I don't know anybody outside of Babylon 5 that really had a consistent plan to make a long form, close narrative with a beginning, middle, and end. And even then, Babylon 5 came this close to failing. And one could argue is it stumbled in the last season because it had to really pull out a season out of nowhere. So even then, Babylon 5 didn't do it. Others make a lot of compromises. But rarely are these things actually created this way. Especially in video games. We talk about this a lot in the podcast with Chapelmon, that, you make your game. If it's successful, you get a shot at a sequel. You make your, if your first movie is successful, you can have a franchise. Same thing with a game. If you're making a TV show, if the pilot is successful, yeah, considering how none of the PlayStation Plus really matter, Mass Effect 2, or how they play Mass Effect 3. Yeah, again, that's something we're gonna cover here in a moment. And so it's like you may have all the plans in the world, but if you don't get a sequel, you don't get the money, you don't get the shot, then nothing happens. So you hope for the best. Said the Bridget DLC, right? But yeah, you hope for the best, but you prepare for the worst, right? So Mass Effect is a great game, and this is what happens with all the games in a way, that as self-contained narratives, Mass Effect and Mass Effect 2 work fine. Mass Effect 3, by its very nature, doesn't work because it has to carry the weight of the other two narratives, right? Yeah, it's a little add-on on DLC. So the fixes to Mass Effect's original story have to be made with an eye to the rest of the series. By the way, if the way I talk and the way I vocalize and make movements and all sound familiar, For those people who be fans of Lore Runner, for example, I borrowed his format, and by borrow I mean stole. He can do it better. He has the code and the pin and shape head, so he's doing much better than I can. But hopefully I'm not a bad imitator. But back to the story ahead. So if you leave the story more or less what it is, let's start with a more radical idea. The most radical idea is that I would take the plot of Mass Effect 2 and the plot of Mass Effect 1 and I would switch them. Why is that? Because I think the fundamental problem for Mass Effect as a sort of a long form storytelling, you want to use that term. I don't like it, but I'm going to use it because it's a common accepted term. The problem is that the stakes are put so high, there's very little room to raise them higher. So one of the things that happens with Mass Effect is that the overall stakes, once they hit the high note, once you realize the Reapers are the thing, they never really come down. There's a change of focus in Mass Effect 2, but overall stakes is like, oh my god, the universe, all life is going to end, the universe is going to implode, etc. Well, not literally, but the Reapers are coming, they're going to kill everything. So that's it, right? There's not a lot of room to maneuver. By switching the plots, you give yourself a little bit of space in that you go out, you discover that the Protheans are not all dead. Spoilers for Mass Effect 2 if you haven't played it, or the series for that matter. A little late, I know. But you discovered that they are alive, maybe, or something kind of, and there's a force behind them. And then when you go to Mass Effect 2, it's like, okay, I couldn't convince the council of this because we had definitely proof about the collectors, but we dealt with the collectors. So now we got to go to Mass Effect 2 and deal with Saren and all that and really build that trust. So by the end of Mass Effect 2, when the Admiral, the big speech is given at the end that, the Reapers are coming from dark space and we're going to face them, then you cut to Mass Effect 3 and, the invasion is there and you have to deal with them. The problem with that switch is that it works on a setting and plot level, but it doesn't work for characters. Because one of the things that, if you really want to talk about Mass Effect, is really what one of the foundation things about Mass Effect is the setting and the characters. The plot, such as it is, it's pretty bog standard, right? Space Marine goes out to defeat the big bad aliens and destroy the, humanity or whatever, right? So that's not, the specifics have the particular flavor of Mass Effect, but really the plot itself is bog standard. In fact, it repeats itself twice. Mass Effect 2, which is another problem. So, okay, what do you do with a crew of certain crew members like Garrus and Tali, which are very popular? They really don't have any reason to join you if you're fighting collectors. They can join you in Mass Effect 2, but not in Mass Effect. And I think a lot of people, especially from the old fanboys, go like, no, I gotta have my Tali, I gotta have Garrus. I know Chapel wants to have Garrus from the very beginning, so that's not gonna work. And when you introduce Miranda, stuff like that, what do you do with the SR1? Do you explode it or not in Mass Effect 2, etc., which we're going to talk about a bit later? But no, that's not going to work. So let's say we keep the plot as is, as much as possible. Well, in Mass Effect, then, you have to do more foreshadowing. I would introduce Miranda a little earlier as a contact with Cerberus, because the problem with Mass Effect is not only the stakes are very high, there's a lot of subplots that could become a B plot, a plot that could help connect the rest of the series. But none of them have enough focus to say, oh, this is clearly a subplot, right? And again, that's a problem Mass Effect 2 will have in a moment. We'll talk about this. So I would, if you're projecting the Cerberus is going to be a major element throughout the 3 games, you got a little more focus, especially in your side missions, to dealing with Cerberus. Otherwise, Cerberus is just another series of mooks. In fact, there's a line that says, "Oh, you destroyed Cerberus" in the original game. Of course, clearly that's not what happens. I mean, you can easily dismiss, like, you thought you destroyed them, but If Mass Effect had been the only game, then yeah, you would have destroyed Cerberus, right? It's just another set of, you know, enemies that you fight. Some interesting side story, like Admiral Kohaku's story. It's pretty interesting. It's a side plot. But for the most part, that's it, right? So introducing elements like the elusive man, maybe Randa or Jacob earlier, also give poor Jacob more development. Come on, please. He needs it, definitely needs it. And stuff like that, right? And then, and that would be it, right? The um, and then you go because Mass Effect story is a self-contained story. You face Saren, you face the Geth, you face the Reapers, you face Orin, you win the battle, the Citadel, it's over. Now we get to Mass Effect 2. Yeah, it was a cell service working for whatever experiment. They want to do multiple experiments running through the original game. They were doing super soldiers here and stuff like that. But they claim that you destroy service, make the sort of open-ended claim like that, which was not very supported. So as you go to Mass Effect 2, here's where the trilogy sort of derails itself. And we have to consider that there are not only narrative reasons for this, but also there are also financial marketing reasons for this. And that is the first red flag is the death of Shepard. Now, again, if you take Mass Effect 2 by itself, having Shepard die at the beginning and getting rebuilt, resurrected, great plot point. But really, why is that plot point there? Ironically enough, is to support the gameplay, right? By killing the point of view character, POV character, it's much easier for you to accept that there are greater graphics, new GUI, new graphic interface, new skills, new everything, right? Including some stuff that, again, and this is one mechanical thing that bother a lot of people, the reload system, right? That's introduced in Mass Effect 2 and 3. I think that should have been put back in Mass Effect. Either or. Either you keep the entire series and no reloads, but you nerf a little bit of you tweak the heating system, the cooling system, or you have an ammo system, essentially a reload ammo system from the very beginning. And a mechanical aspect of this, as well as lore aspect, the lore explanation is BS, right? But having Shepard dying allows you to deal with that. It's a new Shepard and a new system and a new game. Also, remember, when the recent marketing says is that many people who played Mass Effect 2 necessarily played the original Mass Effect, so they need a new, fresh introduction. So having your hero essentially be reset allows them to be like, okay, I recognize that this character comes from another game, but I don't play that game, so I'm playing with a new character. That also presents its own problems, so we'll talk about it in a moment. The problem, but that sets up a series of problems. First of all, one of focus. Normally, when you're doing a trilogy, Star Wars like, right, what you have is two main plot lines or two plots, right? You have your A plot, which is introduced in the first installment, and your B plot, which is also it's a secondary plot in the first installment that then becomes your A plot in the first and your second and story. So when you come to the third part, you sort of bring them both together. Like in Star Wars, the two plot lines are the plot A is the Death Star, right? Death Star, which is signifies the Civil War, right, between the Alliance and the Empire, the Galactic Civil War. And the other plot line is Luke's training, Luke becoming a Jedi, and the whole thing with the Jedi and the Force, right? The first movie, we have destruction of the Death Star. In the second movie, we have mostly focus on Luke Skywalker, just dealing with and training for the Force and facing his fears and facing Darth Vader. And in the third movie, we have another battle with the second Death Star. Again, the Civil War stuff. And we have the B plot, which became the A plot during the Empire Strikes Back, becoming the thing that happens in the third movie, which is the fight between the Emperor, Darth Vader, and Luke Skywalker, right? And you resolve that all in one place, and there you go. That's just how you're supposed to do it. It's a good roadmap. The problem is, it's in Mass Effect 2 that doesn't really happen. Cerberus is a B plot that remains a B plot in Mass Effect 2 and in Mass Effect 3. It never really rises to the moment of being its own A plot. It's never really, Mass Effect 2 is not about dealing with Cerberus, really. You have to deal with them, you're forced to deal with them, but they're just people you work for. They're the plot device to why you have a new ship and a new crew and facing the collectors and all that, and why the Alliance is not dealing with that, and why the Citadel Council is not dealing with the situation, right? So, but they're not really the focus. The focus is on the collectors, and the collectors are just a swap for the Geth and Sarah. So you're basically going through the same things. You get a ship, you get a crew together. Although you start with both times you start with a basic crew and then you expand it. You go around the galaxy doing missions. In this case, focus on getting your crew together, and then you go to the final, secret place that nobody else can reach. And the first game is Helios. It was no, not Helios. The dead planet with the um, not the Stargate, the Mass Effect. Um, with the thing that you go back to Citadel, the secret planet, right? Secret location. And in Mass Effect 2, it's you go to Omega, the Omega relay. You go to a space station, and you end up going to a space station. You go back to the Citadel in the first game, and you go to this new space station in Mass Effect 2, and you defeat the enemy, and you confront Reaper-like construct at the end, and you won, and all that, right? The writing in Mass Effect 2 is excellent at the personal level. The new characters, it's great. I wouldn't change more of that, but although I'll talk about one character in particular that needs a major rewrite, all the others are fine for the most part. But that's a problem. And there's another problem is that because this is a sequel, but it's not the final game because it's a trilogy. And remember those stakes, right? How do you, they keep the stake high by making it personal, but at the same time they have to play the game of like, oh no, the Citadel Council does not accept the fact that the Reapers are here and whatever. It's like, what? But the giant ship that attacked the Citadel with the Geth. No, that was all the Geth. Nobody believes it. It's like, I would fix that by saying that it's intimated that that's the public line, but you never get a chance to test that. So I would have a series of scenes, right, or opportunities, especially based on your decision in Mass Effect whether to keep the old council or the new council. Because, and we know that in Mass Effect 3 you're going to get substitutes, which are from the same races. It turns out that humanity cannot rule the galaxy alone. Yeah, that's chapter 1 saying Terminus area is also a lost opportunity. Instead of mysterious unknown new aliens, it's just controlled by prior to council races. We get a couple of new aliens, but not enough, right? You got to be careful of just putting a lot of aliens because eventually you get rubber forehead alien syndrome, right? And you can make things too messy, right? Actually, I do believe that keeping the numbers, well under the control in Mass Effect once they have their core of races wasn't a horrific idea. It worked. You got to cut some. Yeah, there's to make some cut somewhere. I don't think that's a bad idea myself. But yeah, a lost opportunity nonetheless to a couple more races, etc. So even more so in Andromeda, by the way. So that's 2 cents there. But I would have a scene, okay, the Shepard goes to whoever the counselor is, and they either get rebuffed or they have a conversation. By the way, it's Admiral Anderson. I forgot Anderson's name. If you make him counselor, you talk to Anderson. It's like, yeah, things are going. We're cleaning up with the Geth, etc. If you choose the politician, he goes like, "F you, I'm not going to talk to you." Either way, you should be able to get an audience with other council members in private and talk to them. All except the Asari one. And I'll tell you why in a moment. That's a setup for 3, right? They're hiding something. They don't want to talk to you, whoever they are. new council or council don't want to talk to you because they know something. Udina, Council Udina, yeah. Udina tells you to f off, but you get to talk about to the other councilors, the Salarian counselor and the Taurian council. Now, when you talk to them, they'll be skeptical, but they were willing to entertain the idea that maybe, yeah, we're dealing with something more than the Geth. If you talk to the Salarian counselor, their line is, okay, we analyze the technology. Either most of it was destroyed, so we can't deal with it. But we do have found data about this indoctrination stuff, which makes it very dangerous to study, which makes it hard to study. We haven't been able to study effectively, and we don't have a counter for it. So unless we find a counter for indoctrination, we're screwed, right? Yeah, that could have been it. That's a good point. Chabon brings MH2 should have been about finding the Crucible plans rather than finding them subtly at the beginning of Mass Effect 3. I never thought about that, but yeah, that could have been a thing as well. But we'll talk about that because preparing for the Reapers I think, should have been the real focus rather than going after the Collectors as an alternate to just going after the Collectors. So you talk to the Stellarians, and their concern is that their intelligence hasn't shown anything, right? And their science can crack the few pieces of tech, right? So without those things, they can't help you. It's like, we don't have a time scale for this. The Turians are more practical. It's like, listen, okay, let's say that the Reapers are real, right? What do we do about it? How many Reapers out there, right? Is this one singular ship? If the Reapers are stronger, equal to, not like Sovereign, etc.? We don't know, right? Let's say that we unlock the Citadel. Citadel happens to be a gateway to dark space where the Reapers are. How many ships do we send? Right? If it's just another Reaper, we can send 100 ships. It will be a tough fight. We'll destroy it, and we're done. But what if there are hundreds, thousands of Reapers, tens of thousands of Reapers, all equal or similar to Sovereign? We send our entire fleet, they get wiped out, then we're completely defenseless, right? We don't have the intelligence. We don't know how they even do this thing how they're able to destroy the galaxy, right? Yeah, we know that they shut down the mass relays through the Citadel. Okay, well, we have a fleet here, and we block that access. So they're in the dark space. It's gonna could take them. We don't know the capabilities. It could take them centuries to arrive, right? So by that time, are we going to keep fleets around for centuries just waiting for this one threat that may never materialize, right? Yeah, that's true. I actually pick it up in my own fix pick after Earth Chronicles. I'm making indoctrination far more important than that, but that's neither here and there at this moment. So they have genuine concerns, and that would put them not to be so dumb. Like, oh, we just sort of deny it, and we're having denial is a river in Egypt, Earth. It's like we have genuine concern, and now you're working with Cerberus, Shepard. So how can we trust you, right? And so the focus in Mass Effect 2 should have been about preparing for the Reapers. And it could have been multiple things. It could be preparing about the Reapers, right? In which you deal with Cerberus, but you're not enthralled with them. In other words, and that would be a situation where the SR1 is not destroyed in the beginning, Shepard doesn't die, so they are not enthralled to or under the thumb of Cerberus, right? You could have the SR1 be updated in some way. That could happen with the SR2 between Mass Effect 2 and 3, right? It's an experimental ship. It goes back to the shipyards. It gets upgraded, and you get some upgrades. But you don't need a new ship. Although it might feel like a new ship, kind of like what happened with the Enterprise, and the between the TV series, the original series, and the first movie. It was rebuilt, the new Enterprise. Had some upgrades because they were changing the sets, so they had to justify the upgrades. So something like that. And then that happens in Mass Effect, between Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 3. The SR2 gets turned over to Earth, and they start mucking around with it, and so it looks different. The color paneling is different. The all that stuff. So yeah, it could have been done earlier, right? Um, and again, you're dealing with Cerberus, but just Cerberus is not. You keep the focus on the Reapers. The problem is that with preparation, there's no one big bad. Maybe what happens is that the collectors are there trying to stop you, right? Rather than going after colonies, they're a recurring enemy, except with remnants of the Geth and stuff like that. And all the people that you meet in the process of finding defenses to fight the Reapers, like your Solarian scientist, right? He'd be perfect for not only dealing with collectors but also dealing with the Reapers, right? Um, Miranda and Jacob being a former alliance person now working for Cerberus. Also Miranda, who if you already met them in the first game, it's like, oh yeah, I have this connection, dealing with the Shadow Broker, etc. You need a big bad as a substitute for the Reapers, because in the second game you want to be fighting the Reapers. But I can have the collectors just, trying to stop Shepard. And then you have this climatic battle in which you defeat the collectors. I guess it would have called something else because collectors implies they're collecting humans, right? Um, and you sort of get them off your back, and you find out that, or maybe you as you're investigating the Reapers, you find about the collectors who go to Omega and find out that they take people and experiments. It's like maybe they know something more about the Reapers, and that's what motivates you to go after them. It is implied in Mass Effect 2. It's actually told that yeah, they have a connection to the Reapers, but all the preparation goes to the hands of Cerberus, right? And so the problem there is it goes to the hands of Cerberus. It doesn't go to the Alliance. It doesn't go to the Citadel Council. You get some info, some tech. Probably Shepard got debriefed, but not enough and not in time, because all this time Shepard is going around the galaxy doing stuff. He's not giving this information directly to the Alliance. Another plot point, if you're going to keep Cerberus as a B plot, right, and you're going to keep the A plot being the focus on the Reapers, is that especially if you follow the plot line where Shepard is sort of um enthralled to Cerberus, right? They're in the service of Cerberus because they brought him back to life. Have this plot point. It's hinted at in Mass Effect 2, but it's never really. I mean, they looking at the image, they look for the more popular, iconic characters, right? Um, Chaba was talking about the background picture behind me. Well, in my background, not literally behind me. Um, and the issue there is, go okay. What happens with Cerberus? Because that's another problem with Cerberus. You get the hint, and at the end, you kind of help or hint to Cerberus. But even then, at the end, the way the question is proposed is like it's a question of morality versus practicality, which is not bad. But the problem is that that makes the doing the right thing, morally speaking, extremely impractical, because it's easy to believe that Cerberus is on your side and you're working with Cerberus in spite of all the things that Cerberus does. Um, that they're taking, we're talking about an extinction level event. So if you want to live, you know you know survival makes for strange bedfellows, right? It's not until Mass Effect 3 you're like, oh yeah, doesn't really matter what they decide anyway. They're bad and they're not going to help you. In fact, they're your own enemies. So kind of negates the question altogether. um well, Thane was a popular character, right? In fact, Thane was created to be a popular character. It was designed for people who like to ship femchat with an. It was literally designed with a female gaze in mind, so that's why it was uh popular, right? And he also was part of the many of the materials that you saw originally when they were promoting Mass Effect 2. So if that's the case, then the focus should be on Shepard, and this would be interesting to use Shepard's Paragon and Renegade, right? In which Shepard is forced to work with Cerberus, but they have a choice, and not simply to give the station, uh, and the remnants of the Reaper to Cerberus at the end. but rather whether you actively work to undermine Cerberus in one or two ways. You actively work to destroy Cerberus. That would be the Paragon, because they're terrorists, right? Uh, and you take every opportunity to screw them over, right? But the Renegade, and this would be very interesting, because Renegade gets misused throughout the series, right? Particularly Mass Effect 2. I mean, Renegade, most of the time, Mass Effect 2 just comes to being more of a jerk, right? It's like, you people don't like poor people on the Citadel, that kind of thing, which is, I guess, true, but, comes out of being a troll, right? Space troll, basically. Shepard the space troll. So instead, have Renegade Shepard, uh, yeah, Renegade Shepard should be more aligned with the way Cerberus thinks, right? Because the thing about Cerberus, especially the presented in Mass Effect 2, is the end justifies the means. We're facing an extinction level event. Morality can F itself. It's all about solutions. Morality is for the living, not the dead. So have Shepard, Renegade Shepard, undermine Cerberus, but be more Cerberus than Cerberus, right? It's like, oh, you can choose the elusive man who's hiding somewhere in some dark room, right? Fancy chair and all that. Or you can choose me, the guy that saved the galaxy at least once, and I'm about to do it again. How about that? That does keep Cerberus as a. I actually do like the system in the first and third games, and I do like the interrupts, but I do not like it. More could be done to use them, and they're gonna keep them anyway. I mean, it's a distinctive feature. I actually missed that in Andromeda to a bit. Didn't need it, but kind of missed it. And so that would also give more import to Renegade Shepard, and especially Renegade Shepard on a Paragon Shepard. One thing I would not do is have all the scars thing. I never got that because that kind of makes sure that it looks Renegade. It's evil. There's evil red scars. And I would fix that by saying that you start regardless of what you are. They wouldn't be color coded. It would be black or something like that, or silver because it's cybernetics. Um, and then as you improve your body, because you modified your body, you have unlock things along the way, they start disappearing because you become more and more, more of a super soldier. And that's another thing. It's like, and this is what I'm going to talk about this, the missed opportunity in Mass Effect 2, its character development. Because in Mass Effect 2, as a second part of a trilogy, the second part is the bridging part. It's what makes it's the body of the work. If you talk about an essay, introductory paragraph, body paragraph, conclusion paragraph, then your first installment is your introduction to the universe, to the characters, to all the aspects, major aspects, technology, lore, etc., plots, etc. And the third one is your conclusion of the story. Then the body has to be where you expand upon that. So Mass Effect 2 should have been the place where Shepard gets it expanded, right? You get to really explore Shepard. But again, because you have the death of Shepard in the beginning, what happens with Shepard is it gets reset. You have some aspects of the DLC where Shepard gets exasperated with Liara, but the deal with the council, stuff like that. But for the most part, I wish they had embraced a sort of KOTOR 1 or KOTOR Knights of the Old Republic approach, right? Where, yes, you have a new Shepard in a way. And the question should have been, as Shepard sort of getting rebuilt, I would say that when Shepard wakes up, they're incomplete. And part of the process is completing Shepard into the super soldier, right? And in the process, Shepard either decides to, just like Revan in Knights of the Old Republic, do they go back to the way they were as a light side Jedi, or do they embrace the fact that they turn to the dark side, right? In this case, it would have been, do you embrace, it could have been very interesting because if you were primarily Renegade in the first game, you could have said, no, that was wrong, that didn't help. In fact, when you see the consequences of Renegade actions in the second game, it's like, oh, I screwed up. I'm going to be Paragon, right? Or it's you were Paragon and you see that not everything worked out in the second game, right? And so you go like, maybe no, this is, it's all about survival. Nobody's doing anything. I'm gonna have to turn renegade, or a mix of the two, right? Um, so giving you four choices: mostly renegade with shades of paragon, mostly paragon with shades of renegade, full paragon. So four choices. I'm gonna use that system for the remake of KOTOR 2. Talk about that, but not tonight. And so, yeah, you have that. You have that situation. So you have a couple of things. Make sure you have more foreshadowing. Talk to the council. If you're gonna keep the have either the focus be on Cerberus rather than the collectors. The focus on Cerberus and whether plot wise, whether you work with them, you undermine them by recruiting people from under them as a renegade because you share the same values, or being a paragon saying, you know what, I'm gonna, like Tali says, I'm gonna take a dark grenade to it. Dark energy doesn't work. A lot of people say, oh, the dark energy thing doesn't work because when you go to Mass Effect 3, if that's the reason why they were doing it, it's just as dumb, right? I have a solution for dark energy, by the way, but that's going to be when we talk about Mass Effect 3. And so it's very simple. It's very sort of, a note like, oh, this is what's happening. And it gets rid of the dark energy thing. And it fits very well, I think. So the focus is on this, destroying Cerberus from within, because they're the A plot. B plot in the first game gets elevated to the A plot. Or if the focus is on the Reapers, it's about preparing for the Reapers, maybe trying to find information about the Reapers, getting new technology, new advances, new ships, and of course, essentially doing most of the stuff that you do in Mass Effect 3 to fight the war. That should have happened in Mass Effect 2, preparing for the war. Like, for example, one of the things that should have happened is that most of your quest givers should not have been Cerberus. Cerberus should have been one of your quest givers. Like, for example, it's implied in Mass Effect 3 that that's what happens, but really, that's not how Mass Effect 2 handled it. Yeah, it's obvious and on fire. Check out, which we're gonna fire it in a moment. Chapel, don't worry about it. I'm gonna pull that trigger, but it's not gonna be a big pop. Right? It's not gonna be a big bang. It's more like a pop, but it gets it out of the way. Now, the if the focus is on preparing for the Reapers, for example, Aria gives you missions. Say, okay, here are some missions. Because I know the Reapers are coming, and this is why I'm working with you. I actually believe you, Shepard. And I'm all out here in my own station, so I gotta find allies and friends where I can find them. By the way, there's these crazy yokos that are running these powerful gang/mercenary companies. Go out there, kick their asses, and I'll take care of what's left. So if you kill the leaders, etc., you do the missions against a lot of the side missions are against mercenaries. Make those area missions, and she will give you certain upgrades in turn, right, for better ships and stuff like that. And you do missions covertly for the Alliance. Maybe contact with STG, like, okay, we know you're doing this. Maybe if you do this for us, because the Solarians are saying, hey, remember, I said Solarians don't have enough info, but Shepard is finding out stuff. It's like, well, you pass it along to the STG, to Solarians, that will, win you some points with a Solarian counselor, right? Preparing politically as well as militarily and technologically for the Reapers to come. I wouldn't change the final mission. I would change one thing about the collector cruiser. First of all, I wouldn't call it a cruiser. I call it a dreadnought, or just a collector ship. Because calling it a cruiser, it's clearly a dreadnought-sized ship. So yeah. The other thing I would change is I would not make the service missions when the Elusive Man calls you obligatory. I know why they did it. They did it because in the 360 they had to use 2 discs, and many of these missions signal when you had to change from one disc to the next. And also they didn't want you to be too overpowered. They wanted these missions to be particularly difficult, so you felt the threat of the collectors, right? If you had too much stuff, then it would be too easy. And so the collectors wouldn't be that impressive. But I would make them. I wouldn't make them obligatory. Like you have to do them when the elusive man changes. Instead, I would do like they did in Mass Effect 3. Like for example, oh, the Reapers are landing in this planet. You have X amount of time to deal with it, or in Horizon. If you don't, the opportunity passes, and you lost a colony, and you might not ever get back the survivor from the first game, right? The Vermeer survivor, they're dead because you didn't save them in time. And in fact, if you do it very quickly, you do it quickly as possible. You're doing it with less technology available to you, but so it's harder, but you get to probably save more people. In fact, that actually happens in Mass Effect 2. Mass Effect 2, if you're given a choice to launch a final mission because your crew gets captured. Now, I would change that. Again, that's a very interesting mission by itself, but it makes no sense that everybody was loaded in the shuttle and they leave all the principals and then they show up, right? I would have it that the ship has to hide itself, right? Maybe. But yeah, the collector showing up and taking over the ship, but not they take over the ship, take your people, but they don't take the ship, right? Yeah, that I would. I mean, it's an interesting mission. You get to play from Joker's point of view, but overall, it doesn't make any sense. Uh, I'm going to answer that question. Well, first of all, I don't think they were thinking about the collectors during the first game. They needed a substitute, right? The idea of the second game is a holding pattern until they figured out how to do the final trilogy, right? They wanted a bigger, better game that appealed to more people. It's like, well, let's go back to the same. Well, we switch seemingly mechanical enemies for seemingly organic enemies. That's about it. But I think the collectors serve a different purpose. Like the collectors were not designed to be an army, like the Geth, right? The Geth were there because Sovereign just wanted to. His plan or its plan was to hook up with the Citadel, and needed a backup, right? Otherwise, uh, yeah, Reapers don't have that tractor beam technology. Um, so their job simply was to be a blunt instrument that allows Sovereign to get to it. Because if Sovereign had gone alone against the Citadel fleet, as powerful as Sovereign was, I think it would have lost or there'd be significant damage. It was a powerful fleet, right? I mean, the Reapers are difficult to kill, but they're not impossible to kill. And the third game certainly shows that. So that's where the Geth were there. Geth is like, I need to, someone said, I need to restart the cycle. The Geth are available. Let's use them, right? And the collectors are there because I think the collectors are there because they're part of the cycle. They're probably a chosen race that they use to investigate and keep tabs on the process and the progress of the current cycle to say when they can invade, and also that's something that should have been, again, if you're focusing on investigating the collectors to find out more about the Reapers, you start finding out that what the collectors do is that they capture different species in small numbers, which you're told, and they're the ones who start doing all the experiments. So when the invasion kickstarts, the Reapers already have the kind of troops they're going to use. Like all the troops that appear, the mutations that appear in the third game, they were done by the collectors. And it gives them plausible deniability because it's not the Reapers doing it, it's the collectors doing it. Collectors come in, they come in, they take away a couple people and they're gone, and they're weird, and maybe somebody has a fight with them. It's like, oh, they're just collectors, and gave them a sense of plausible deniability. That's why I said in the earlier, switching the collectors for the Geth in the first, switching the plots, or at least the enemies, uh, uh, because that keeps the secret, right? Shepard goes and fights this thing that looks humanoid. You don't know what it is. And it's like, well, that's a Reaper. Really? It looks like a strange, giant humanoid thing with 3 eyes. What are you talking about? And you destroyed it, so I guess you killed all the collectors, so they were not that big of a threat anyway. So congratulations, you're now a Spectre. good to go, right? Um, so I wouldn't change much of the last mission going to Omega and all that. Those are pretty good sets. I would expand a little bit more on the Dead Reaper, specifically go to the planet where they found the defunct weapon, right? Because anything that can just hit a Reaper that hard, it's worth experimenting on, right? And finding out how they did it. Is it just a gigantic gun? Is it some special technology? Does it use energy? Does it use, subspace or whatever it is they're going to use, right? Mass effect fields in an interesting way, new technology nobody's heard about. I mean, come on, right? So then we get to Mass Effect 3. And the problem with Mass Effect 3 is that it has to integrate the parallel storylines between Mass Effect and Mass Effect 2. Remember, they're parallel. They're not intertwined. We're not taking one A plot and one B plot and then putting it together. It's an A plot and an A plot, which are exactly the same, and you sort of have to mash them together. In fact, it is in Mass Effect 3 that Cerberus really becomes the B plot that is implied to be the B plot in Mass Effect 2, but never released because they're out of focus. If the plot in Mass Effect 2 included or was focused on undermining Cerberus was always bad, always evil, always misguided or extremist, then the fact that they take their lumps, but they have to change strategy and go out in the open, and maybe you get hints at the fact Cerberus, because they're constantly experimenting with Reaper tech, they are getting indoctrinated. That doesn't come out of left field in Mass Effect 3. And so resolving the Cerberus plot and the Reaper plot come together in Mass Effect 3 better. Now, here's when we're basically going to talk about two things in Mass Effect 3. One is going to be a couple of things. One of them is mechanical. I think the whole galaxy preparation thing was broken. It was designed around multiplayer, and the values were skewed. Like, you save like 5 people here, they give you like 500 or 600 points, but half a dozen ships only give you like 1,000. The values didn't. I would make it a percentage point, and I would break it in 3 stages. You have your technology, which is the Crucible, right? You have your ships, which is your fleets going to find space, and then you have your ground forces. And different missions deal with different things, and some of them would have overlap. So, for example, you do particularly well in a ground-based mission that supports like your planets and stuff like that, because that's where your resources come from, and that's where your populations are, right? Then, yeah, Cerberus with a new collector's plot twist, the new servant race, right? And there's overlap. And the better you do of these things, you go start from black, you've done nothing. Although if you start only in the black if you haven't played any of the other games. If you have played any of the other games, you start at least in the red. Red, yellow, green, blue, and finally gold. These colors are important because there's something I want to say about Mass Effect 3, especially about the ending. If I were sitting in a meeting discussing fixing the ending, particularly of Mass Effect 3, I would say the following phrase: it's all about the button. Now, that doesn't make any sense right now. Hopefully it will make sense by the time we get to that point. But remember, in Mass Effect 3, it's all about the button. I say again, Mass Effect 3, it's all about the button, pressing of a button. Okay. You start you already done preparations in Mass Effect 2. You have information. Maybe maybe Mass Effect 2 ends instead of with Arrival could have been a thing, but Arrival, more than Arrival, it should have been more like a race, a DLC where you're starting the race to get to Mars, right? It's like, oh, we discovered that there's a weapon that will turn the tide against the Reapers, and boom. Next thing you know, you have to deal with Arrival. You end up in prison. So Liara has to do that thing, and you connect the dots there with other people. That's when Liara knows about it, and she leaves what she was doing to other things, right? Maybe you need another DLC to set that up, or just have it in the regular game if the focus wasn't preparing to fight the Reapers, which should have always been the focus, I think. Primary focus, secondary focus doesn't really matter, but it should have been a focus. It's about really rewriting how missions are set up and why you're doing the things that you're doing in the second game. It doesn't take much to fix those things. In fact, it gets those actions better context, right? And ties them to the overall fighting the Reapers plot. By the way, one thing I would say about Low Runner, no, you were wrong. I'm sorry to say this. If you ever watch this video, the VOD, you probably won't. No, Mass Effect 2 was not about preparing about the Reapers. I wish it was, but it wasn't. Just saying. I don't understand why you said that in your ruminations, but I'm sorry. That's not the case. It's not a fact. So now we're in Mass Effect 3. The Reapers are invaded, etc., etc. You have most of the stuff that happens, and I wouldn't touch them. In fact, one of the best things I like is the highlight, I think, of Mass Effect 3 is Tachanka. Especially if you go and save the Krogan. I mean, the whole thing, it's emotional. Every time I play it, it hits me, right? It's like, wow, this is a great scene, and I actually get teary-eyed when I see it. And probably when I get the remaster and play it again and stream it, you'll probably see me get teary-eyed yet again. Someone says, once heard a good idea that MA3 should have started with the trial following rival that reviews your choices on with the gaining past characters, either defending Shepard or testifying against him. Yeah, that's a good idea. That could also be a good idea. But I wouldn't make the trial at tourist station, not Earth. I know why they did it on Earth. Again, a commercial reason. People who haven't played Mass Effect or Mass Effect 2, starting on Earth is a very impressive thing. Talking about the original invasion, one thing I would change from a visual point of view, I would not have all these gigantic Reapers going boom, 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 pew, 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 pew on the ground. That I know why they did it. They were going for the tripod effect from War of the Worlds. But the problem is that the first time you see one of these giants, it's like, wow, this is impressive. But after that, it's like, that's just a background element. That doesn't matter. These things that are blowing up entire, entire cities and just, trampling on it, it's like, whatever, I'm just shooting these other things and it doesn't matter, right? Instead, I would have gone the V for visitors route, which is having just one Reaper per city. Or not even every city, just major cities like Vancouver, just like this one giant Reaper, just like this shadow, and shooting lasers, and then having things on the ground, and then the smaller destroyers are the ones that go pew pew pew, because that's more impressive, right? The numbers during the day into night, right? It's like, oh, damn, you're in the shadow of like in that scene where Shepard escapes the Alliance headquarters, if they're on Earth, or later on when they go to Thessia. They're like, oh, we landed and we're shooting these things. All of a sudden, everybody turns around and this shadow starts going over them. And it's just a massive Reaper who doesn't really care about this group of peons fighting there. It's just shoots one laser over here and another carelessly, like, oh, yeah, I guess my troops need some help. Pew, right? Pew. And that's it, right? One Reaper, because the thing is, if you have a lot of Reapers, it's like, oh, they're everywhere. But one Reaper taking on an entire city, I mean, it's like, it shows you how powerful the Reapers are. It reminds you that Reapers are, something that you just can't just sort of wish away, right? So there's that. So you start the game, you're a tourist, the Reapers are coming, you have to get on the SR2 and escape. You go to Mars, you have the fight with everything, and EDI gets introduced. I have no problem with that. That was a pretty cool idea, the confrontation. You, of course, realize how stupidly evil Cerberus really is because they're being indoctrinated. That should have been forecasted in Mass Effect 2. That while they may have good intentions, as in sort of the ends justifies the means kind of way, ultimately the means are, they're bad, right? That they're not going to work. But because you've been working to undermine Cerberus, you actually get allies under Cerberus. Not only Miranda and what's his name? Oh my God! Oh, I forgot about him. I'll back to him in a moment. because that's the one mission. The mission has to be rewritten. Um, the Krogan story arc clearly the first thing written, developed in Mass Effect 3, because seems the best written and presented. Okay, let's go back a little bit to Mass Effect 2. No, not James. I just had in the moment Jacob. I actually did an entire video on Jacob and how his mission is pretty sexist, misogynist, and racist. That's the one mission that would change. Now, I'm not going to rehash everything about that mission, but essentially, it plays in a lot of tropes about people of the tropics, people of the global South, people of color as being, rapists and who could forget Jacob, everyone. Also make Jacob less forgettable, in a sense, right? And prone to violence and all these things. If you really want to make Jacob's story more interesting, first of all, I wouldn't have them like he disappeared 10 years ago. Have him his dad disappeared like a year or two ago. Second, I would make the disagreement between Jacob and his father, not that Jacob's father just abandoned the family to be in space, right? The story of African American males who just leave their family behind because they can't hack it, right? And so, you have the single African American mother left behind with the kids. That's actually totally a myth. Sadly, one myth that has been, enforced by even people like Barack Obama, of all people. But yeah, I guess because of his own experience, I suppose. His father, divorce and all that. But it's not a typical. The myth is that it's a uniquely effect from people of color, without any historical context, and also in socioeconomic context, and it's actually very common across a lot of parents abandoning children is ungodly common, and it's not limited to Black people in America. So the stereotype is horrific. I would make the difference is that, and this would go to one of the fundamental themes of Mass Effect, that Jacob's father, what he wanted to do was to engage in peaceful exploration of the galaxy. Kind of a Star Trek type approach, right? He wants to go out there, you meet new people. He is a pacifist, like a literal pacifist. He believes in exploration and meeting new races and opening new environments, etc. He points to the Citadel and saying, hey, everybody gets along, sure, there's some conflict, etc. Jacob, also being a biotic, has a different take on it. It's like, no, the galaxy is aggressive. There's aliens out there. Look at the Taurians who nearly kill us all. We're dealing with libertarians. We need to defend ourselves. And oh, by the way, I've been bullied because I'm a biotic, right? Because people find me strange and alien. And so I have to deal with that as well. So my experiences are different from your dad. I'm going to join the Systems Alliance, or I'm going to join Cerberus. And they go, Jacob's very pro military. His father is pacifist. Father disappears. The parents are not divorced. It just so happens that father works in space, right? And he disappears for a couple years, maybe 2 or 3 at most of that, because the gap of about 10 years presents a lot of problems, including how they use guns to have the ammunition system, how come it took so long for them to, how long this supplies lasted, and all this. It was too long, right? So Jacob goes to find out what happens. And what happens essentially is that his father was the XO, second in command. And as people were in this planet, trapping this planet, the guy who essentially turns out to be a rapist, because that's the thing, there's a guy who basically took advantage of one of the women, who was harassing women and then took advantage of her because she had to eat the local food. He finds out about it, and he has control of the mechs, and he's forced to kill. And some people stay with him, but other people, go against him because he just executed this guy, right? To stop him from doing this horrible thing, right? So now this is division, and he's being forced to have this battle between these two groups. and use violence over and over and over again to protect the people that he cares about. But Jacob's dad is a pacifist. So it's breaking him down. And of course, he's running out of mechs and guns and ammunition. So eventually, well, not ammunition, it's heating, the cooling things. I forgot the name of it. Something caps. I don't know. And he's desperate, so he's been trying to get the thing going to escape from the planet, etc. And that's when Jacob arrives. And now he finds his father. Instead of being cocky and it's like, oh no, I did my best, whatever. It's like, no, it's like utterly broken. Thermoclips, yeah, could have made the mission harder since there are no thermoclips for enemies. Monitor your shots and rely more on powers. Yeah, that could have been a thing. If there were no thermoclips like we discussed before in the first game, if there were, then that shouldn't be a problem. Although they could be running low of thermoclips. I mean, they're not reusable. And so Jake, he finds his father broken, right? Father was a good man, forced to make harsh decisions that saved lives, but also took lives. And Jacob then has to start to confront that his hard stand pro-military is not all that there is. And that his father is a good man, and they're not always making hard decisions. Bloody decisions it's a good thing. It has an impact, right? And so one of the things we have with Jacob and also with Miranda is that this would be their beginning. Instead of being and that's kind of what happens with Jacob, right? They start questioning Cerberus and eventually they turn against Cerberus, right? Miranda would be, let's say if she's romanced by Shepard, would do it sooner, right? But Jacob would take more time, right? Because it's not merely about whether he's in Cerberus or not, but coming into peace with the use of violence and whether or not why you should use violence. Just instead of just lashing out and being afraid of the galaxy and just be free, it has to be a purpose other than I'm gung-ho, I'm going to just take on my enemies and that's it. Which is kind of what he comes up in the third game. It's like I'm happy with these people. I have a girlfriend. I'll be a father soon. These people need me. I'm going to help them out. I will have more options, especially if he's romanceable. The idea that he just sort of dumps Shepard, Femchep, and just gets a new girlfriend. It can happen. I mean, it's just I think it was badly written. It was just there was not enough time for that to develop, and also that but the prize, man, is like I would rewrite that scene. I would never have Jacob's voice actor say that ever again because that's just creepy as hell. I saw that in a clip. I never actually done the romance. I saw that in a clip and I went like, ugh. But the what? Ugh. That was a turnoff. I don't know. I think what people forget about Jacob is because they want to forget about Jacob. It's like Bleach. Anywho, back to Mass Effect 3. Remember when I said it's all about the button? The first thing I would do is I would eliminate that scene in the middle of the game where you have the fight in the Citadel because it makes no sense whatsoever. Cerberus in the middle of the war trying to take over the Citadel doesn't make any sense. Instead, I would substitute it with either Miranda or somebody from Cerberus, ex-Cerberus, who is doing an investigation on Cerberus to find out what they really are doing, where they got their forces, what is the ultimate plan. And either Shepard works with Miranda and does, like in the second game, a series of missions in the Citadel, tracking down agents and having firefights and all that. Because when you work around, it's like, oh, can I help you? It's like, no, I'm going to do this by myself. It would have been cooler if your crew would have aided Miranda finding out what happens. And then you find out, she finds the last piece of information and she says, I need you to trust me on this. And you give it information and she goes off to find out what happened in Horizon. And then you follow up, right? So that would have been great. So instead of having, and along the way, you discover that Udina is working with Cerberus. And then Udina tries to, instead of having a coup, he just tries to get away. And maybe that's where we have the introduction of what's his name? The counterpart to Shepard. Um, and he comes in and he wicks, either he murders Udina to cover the tracks, or he wicks him away and Udina escapes. Like, I would not have the confrontation with the Vermire survivor, because it's a repeat. It's like, oh, to me that never felt any purpose other than to resolve their conflict. But Vermire survivor questioned Shepard being with Cerberus. That could have been done better. Had the Vermire survivor joined the crew earlier, if you tell them to join you, and have them work it out, especially if they're in a romance or you're pursuing a romance. But even if you're not, right? Instead of just being in the bed, you do your thing. Do I shoot you? Don't shoot you, and then you trust me. Now, no service crew at the middle of the game. Okay. Yeah, they made heavy changes on the Thessia mission, and we're going to go to the Thessia mission again. The only problem I have with Thessia mission is the following: the fight with Kai Lang. I was talking about Kai Lang. The problem I have with Kai Lang is that they heavily use like cutscene immunity and all that to make him look like a badass, and it doesn't work. He's just like a punk. Like when you finally fight him, and if you're well equipped and you know what you're doing, it's an easy fight. It's a very easy fight. You really want to make Kai Lang a badass, we'll talk about Kai Lang. So you go to Thessia, you're doing the thing, and now you discover why the Asari counselor wasn't talking to you. Because the Asari, they know about the Reapers. They know the Reapers are coming. They don't have all the information, but they're keeping their mouth shut because they're afraid that if they reveal that information, they also reveal how essentially they dominate the entire galaxy, by proxy, and have the other races turn against them. So the matriarchs are discussing this. Is like, should we tell them? Should not tell them? Should we prepare for ourselves? Right? They're having this conversation, right? In fact, that's something that could have been triggered by Liara's mother back in Mass Effect 2. Mass Effect, the original Mass Effect. Why did Liara's mother join Saren? Is because she was pursuing an alternative to dealing with the Reapers. She knew because she was one of the matriarchs that had access to the beacon. And while they didn't have a perfect picture of what the Reapers were, what they were doing, maybe they didn't know about the Citadel, at least not yet, they're in a difficult position. They're discussing, okay, what do we do about it? Right? Quietly and secretly, without, revealing to everybody else. How do they know? Right? That they had a beacon of their own, that, that they want to establish the laws against, hoarding protein technology, right? Making it legal so that, they could have access to it as well. So that other people couldn't get the same advantages that they had, which is presented in Mass Effect 3. And it's actually well done, by the way, especially if you have the protein, you have Javik with you. And when that scene happens, don't have the firefight. There's a firefight, you have a fight with Kai Lang, which is completely meaningless. I hate the idea of fights that you're meant to lose. If you put an enemy on the screen, I should be able to defeat it. Now, you can create a situation where I could lose and the story continues, but that's the difference between that a situation where, defeat doesn't really mean death, and having a fight where you are meant to lose. And this is a fight that you're meant to lose. So don't have that. You want to show how badass and unconcerned Kai Lang is? Kai Lang delivers the message. He's pacing around. The elusive man says, okay, finish this. And he just taps his earpiece. It was like, target the supports. And the gunship shows up, blinds everybody, starts shooting missiles. The supports are coming down. People are scrambling because rockets and gunfire is coming everywhere. They're taking cover, and this guy's just walking. Yeah. Okay. Here's information. Thank you very much. Thank you, Shepard. And he just walks out. Hops out on the gunship. Maybe have the gumshoe like launch drones and stuff like that to make it more like it's maybe some Cerberus troops actually show up and they start shooting. Right, do that through like a cutscene, and you're done. And then after that, you see the maybe you that's when you see the Infestia, the shadow of the Reaper, right? You see a couple of destroyers in the distance, but you don't see a full size Reaper. And this is when this full size Reaper comes up instead of like 4 or 5 just landing on top of things, coming in over the head, that shadow, and then laser comes like destroys probably the temple. You have to maybe you have to do escape scene where you have to run away from the temple because his beam is coming out, destroying everything. Make that scene like, yeah, the Reapers, just a single full size Reaper has shown up, and you're gonna have to run. You're gonna have to run, or you're gonna die. And Reapers, start dropping everywhere, and you have a scene where instead of having a fight about destroying Kai Lang and not beating him, the fight is about surviving this onslaught of the Reapers, getting on your ship, on your shuttle, and getting the F out of there. And that would keep the impact of, hey, we lost, and have situations where again Shepard gets run out of a planet. He has to leave Earth, and that's why I also would not start on Earth. I would start in Actura Station because that's actually the capital of the Systems Alliance, right? And maybe the SR2 is leaving, and Reaper beam just take the station and rip it apart, and you see a couple, like a half a dozen or more full size Reaper ships, and ships getting blown up. It's like, oh yeah, they showing up. The Alliance headquarters has been destroyed, and nothing you could do about it. We have time to evacuate anybody else. I mean, some leaders may evacuate, something like that, but everybody else is dead. So yeah, that would make a major change. Now, here's the thing. I remember when I said it's all about the button. Well, here's the major changes that start happening to Mass Effect 3 from the original. The big fix. And we're going to the script and we're redoctoring the stuff. We're doing surgery on this script, major surgery. First of all, there wouldn't be a battle on Earth. The whole beam and going to Earth and the ground, none of that. Instead, what would happen is the following. You do the thing in the Cerberus station. You fight your way through Cerberus. You find the bit of the crucible and all that. They tell you you need the Citadel to activate it. Okay. And the Cerberus has sent forces to the station to capture it, right? That's when they're going to stage a coup because now they need the station instead of just narking on them and dropping a dime and telling the Reapers where to find it, right, and where to capture it and why they should capture it. And that makes it too easy. So you're in a race. You have to go back to the Citadel just like you did in the first game. You land first. You have to fight the Reapers. I would make the fight very similar to what happened in the end of Dragon Age Origins, where you have your squad mates and you have, okay, you're gonna go here, you're gonna do that, and so you can play as different squad mates, in different areas, as well as the main team that you have that's fighting through the Citadel. Either Cerberus gets enough control to send the Citadel to Earth, right? So that when the feed has to follow, and when it gets hooked up, they can use the weapon to try to control the Reapers, right? That's their plan. I'm not going to change that because it keeps Cerberus as delusion. So Shepard is fighting, and here's where the color coded from black to gold fits, because the more you have in that chart, that's when you start defining the endings. Like if you, it's very difficult to do, but if you don't have anything, you keep in the red or nearly black, you don't even, you land at the Citadel, you start fighting, and you realize that you're overwhelmed by Cerberus. There's not enough fleet strength to help you. End of the game. Cerberus takes over the station, which means the Reapers take over the station. End of the cycle. And you go forward. Okay, you have strength in ground forces, so you can fight in the Citadel, but your space forces are weak, right? That means that the Crucible never connects to the Citadel. End of the game. Maybe your space forces and your ground forces are strong, but your your crucible is weak, so when you try to switch on the crucible, it doesn't turn on, right? That's when you start getting to the button, right? Because the idea is that you fight your way to the Citadel, you get to the end. There's Kai Lang, there's Admiral Anderson, there's the Elusive Man, and then because Kai Lang has been indoctrinated, because that's part of his cybernetics, the Reapers go like, okay, enough of this. Kai Lang, kill them. Kai Lang turns on Anderson, kills him first because they have a beef. The Lucy Man goes like, no, we need him alive. It's like, boom, he injures or kills the, well, he shoots Anderson. Whether Anderson lives or dies, will not know. He injures him with a hand kind of thing. The Lucy Man goes like, no, but you're supposed to, you're under my command. It's like, boom, he kills them. And when he turns around, he has his eyes glowing because we know he's under the control. The Reapers have assumed control because he's indoctrinating, and you have your final fight. And that's where instead of having like mooks showing up or something like that, maybe the situation is that there's Cerberus troops or even Reaper troops that have landed, and your companions have to hold them back, and then you have to do a one-on-one fight with Kai Lang. He's the final boss, and because he's N7 with cybernetics and super soldier, and you're a super soldier, you fight it out, right? So no thing where you get hit with a beam and you get stripped, and then in the expanded thing, the SR2 comes rescue your friends, but you keep going, and Sovereign and Harbinger just patiently waiting for you to like, oh, are you done? Okay, finally. Oh, you're gonna still try to do this? Okay, fine. I guess I have to shoot you in the face with a giant laser, right? And you're all wounded and walking, and none of that. You have this fight, right? And the Citadel gets transported to Earth, not low Earth orbit. It would be in the Lagrange point. That's the point between the Moon and the Earth. And you have this big space battle, right? Everybody's shooting at each other. The Reapers realize what's going on because Citadel's here, and they see it's like, oh no, we're gonna send our own troops. So now it's a 3-part battle between, Citadel forces and their allies and everybody you built in against Cerberus remnants and Reaper remnants. All the while, Sovereign is trying to recreate what Harbinger is trying to recreate what Sovereign did, and how, depending how strong your fleets are, he might not make it, right? So you see, you have different endings, right, depending on how well you're prepared. You remember that in the original Mass Effect 2, we were promised dozens of endings, right? We didn't get them. Well, Shepard, probably wounded, but still in one place, goes, presses the button, right? And that's when we start having our ending, right? Now, if we want to stay true to the original ending, I wrote a fanfic a long time ago that had substituted the Star Kid for somebody I call the Last. Literally, he or it is a memory engram VI AI from the last member of the race from which the Reapers originally came from. And no, they're not the Leviathans. And like the VI in the original Mass Effect, the Prothean VI in Mass Effect that helps Shepard, this one is always like, no, the Reapers, they were members of our race, but they wanted to be immortal, and we got into a war, and explains what the Reapers are doing, but none of this about dark energy or anything like that, or trying to protect, organics against synthetics. None of that nonsense. And I know I haven't answered the dark energy question yet, and I will in a minute. And Shepard, maybe wounded, whatever, presses the button, and again, depending how well you do, you get various endings. And if Shepard actually gets to press the button and everything works, it could be a situation where you press a button and your Citadel preparations are so bad that the whole thing explodes. The whole thing explodes. Or because they use dark energy, and this is the dark energy explanation. The reason why there's dark energy fluctuations is because the Reapers are remotely supercharging the mass relay network. All of it. And essentially, the mass relays use the dark energy that's projected from the nearby star to power themselves. So as they're supercharging them to allow them better communications and transport across the galaxy because they're preparing for the invasion, some stars start getting you have these fluctuations in dark energy. It's simply a prelude to invasion. The jump in dark energy is simply a prelude to invasion. It's a sign that the Reapers are coming. That's it. That's all there is to dark energy. It's not about stopping the dark energy buildup and the universe. None of that. It's just it's another sign that the Reapers are coming because they're supercharging the relay network so they can use it in their invasion. That's it. Simple explanation. Maybe the last tells Shepard about it, and depending how well you've done in the entire 3 games, right, and your decisions, you can get the blue ending, the green and blue endings, or the green gold ending. The green ending is Shepard lives, but Anderson dies from his wounds, and you get that scene of Anderson saying, "You did good, kid," whatever, and he has to carry the body, a very emotional thing. But Shepard lives, and so it's a bittersweet ending. And then you got the non-canonical golden ending where everything worked right. You press the button, the thing fires, and it does the following. It doesn't do the space magic thing where it just destroys all the Reapers everywhere. Instead, it only works locally, right? It hits the local Reapers and doesn't turn them off like in the red ending. It just simply scrambles them and makes them vulnerable. Because what the Crucible is supposed to do is disrupt in the Reaper signal. Well, I want to talk about that in a moment because we already know the Reaper's reason. We know it all the way back to the original Mass Effect, and it's it's in the name. The wave goes out, the wavelength goes out, hits the Reapers, disrupts them, so that some of them stop shooting, some of them, their propulsion system are out, many of them lose their kinetic barriers, and what the Crucible does essentially is even the odds. Now the Reapers are vulnerable. They're still dangerous, but they're vulnerable, and you keep having to fight, and you destroy a lot of the Reapers, right? On Earth, around Earth. Not all the Reapers, just the ones that are there. And the rest of the Reapers, they just disappear. They're like, we're done. We lost over in the planet Turian homeworld. Now these people have a weapon that can use against us. They disappear, and you set up for a sequel where the Reapers are still hiding and could come back, right? But you have to deal with the aftermath of the galaxy after the invasion. That would be it. Now, talking about, and Chapa One puts in chat, I think the Reaper's reason should never be revealed because it's beyond our understanding. The thing is that we're told why the Reapers are doing this from the very beginning. When Sovereign speaks to Shepard and the crew, he tells them why he's doing it, right? You serve us, we serve to existence. And Mass Effect 2, we're shown what the Reapers do with races. They make more Reapers. That's it. Reapers reap. That's what they do. They're like I would call them a parasite on the galaxy, feeding on advanced races. They require sufficiently advanced races that can make more Reapers out of them, so they use for reproduction, and they scoop all the resources and all that to keep themselves going. That's it. Pretty straightforward. We already know. Has Sovereign never said anything, or they made a embryonic Reaper in Mass Effect 2, then it would have been mysterious. But we know it's in the name. It's not a mystery. And in fact, what the last will reveal, the last of the first, I suppose, very confusing, I know, will reveal is how they came about, give clues of how the Reapers came to be. Now, many people they're going like, oh, but what about Leviathan? Now, I don't like Leviathan DLC. I don't like the Leviathans being hiding around for a billion years and being able to always able to seize control of sentient beings to use them against the Reapers in their own form of mind control and have the technology to blow up Reapers. But somehow they remain hidden and never fight the Reapers until Shepard shows up because reasons. Now, instead, Leviathan would have been a broken Reaper. In Mass Effect and Mass Effect 2, especially Mass Effect 2, Mass Effect 3, Mass Effect original game, the Solarians discover what's described as a techno-organic dreadnought, which the Batarians then take over. We're later told and that's a billion years old. We're later told that the Batarians stole it and um, and they were studying it themselves, and that in fact it was a Reaper. I think that was a slip because that's one of the problems with the games that the game says, "Oh no, the Reapers are completely AI, computers." But if that's the case, then the dreadnought that turned out to be a Reaper should not have been techno-organic. It should not have been a cyborg or a collection of cyborgs. I think the motivation for the Reapers is ultimately greed and fear. Right? They just want to control the galaxy. That's it. By the way, I didn't mention the three endings and all of that because none of that is relevant. You don't get to talk to the Star Child. You just press the button, and depending how well you do with the mechanics, you destroy the Reaper. So when you go in search of the Leviathan, you realize that what happened was that the Batarians started working on the ship and started getting indoctrinated. But because it was damaged, its mind became fractured, right? And essentially became what the Reapers would consider to be insane. It's a Reaper that doesn't no longer wants to be a Reaper. And so it fights against the Reapers. And what it actually was trying to do was get the Batarians I mean, yeah, he says that, and I think it's that line, and also how Harbinger works. Reading again from the chat. I think that people get hung up on because Shepard asks Sovereign directly, "What do you want? Slaves, resources?" Sovereign then says his lines about this reason being beyond our understanding. No one says Reapers can't lie to protect their true reasons. I mean, that's right. If if the collectors were not creating a Reaper embryo, right, experiment to create another Reaper, full size Reaper, in the second game, right, then yeah, they would have been mysterious. But we see their embryo, so it's like this is what they're taking the essence of humans to make another Reaper. So now we know, right? It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. We're told about it, and we should accept it as is, right? And I think the reason why Sovereign says it's just Sovereign just feels contempt for humanity. It's like you are. It's like food talking to you, right? It's like cells talking to you. It's like, what are you? And if Ant starts talking to you the moment before you're about to kill it, you might be surprised, right? But you might just kill it anyway because it's an ant. You're a human, right? Although the fact that they can communicate with each other shows that clearly Sovereign is overestimating their precision, right? It feels offended. And actually, at the end of the game, it gets angry. It shouts at through Reaper Saren, robot Saren. This is my station, right? He's Sovereign is pissed, right? That Reaper keeps trying, that Shepard tries to keep stopping him. Like, I've been doing this for a very long time. I failed before. I'm gonna do it. Get out of my way. I'm gonna have to kill you, right? It doesn't sound like somebody who's just like, kill them or something. No, that doesn't sound like someone who's disinterested. And also, I think Harbinger also uses a lot of psychological, tries to use psychological warfare on Shepard to intimidate them, and it doesn't work. But the fact that they try it all, it's like, if you were such a superior being, you wouldn't even bother with that. I have more theories about the Reapers and what the true motivations. I don't want to reveal them all here. Not necessary for rewriting this, but it's nonetheless something that can be considered. So again, Leviathan is a single Leviathan. It's a broken Reaper because The Batarians couldn't fully repair it, and it was preparing to repel the Reaper invasion for its own selfish needs. It doesn't want to go back to being a Reaper. It doesn't want to be part of the Reapers anymore. It's whatever race, whatever damage it suffered, it's just fragmented and it just wants to end its existence. But of course, it can't. And it becomes an asset that shows up and helps you, fight the Reapers. It probably gets destroyed, right, in the process, but it's one powerful asset, right? It gets more motivations how the Reapers work, etc. And you can explore that. Yeah, they're true. They project that they're more godlike than they are because they know that they're vulnerable. Otherwise, they wouldn't use all these proxies in the first and second game. As for Omega DLC, the only real change I would make in the Omega DLC would be you can use your own crew. You shouldn't go alone. That doesn't make any sense. The only reason why they did it was to cut budget cuts. I think I had to have all these voices and all these characters be voiced. And for the Citadel DLC, there would be no Citadel DLC. The only reason why we have the Citadel DLC is because of the ending, right, of Mass Effect. It was designed to please the hardcore fans of Mass Effect who never really found any real fault with the ending, or it didn't bother them that much. But what they wanted was closure. They wanted their characters to be supported. They wanted to, have more adventures with them, more romances and stuff like that. But the story of the Citadel is silly to the point of stupidity. It's Shepard versus Bizarro Shepard, basically. Has more plot holes. Well, just has plot holes. Just it's unnecessary. Right, I think a lot of people enjoy it because it's pure. It's a fan service pack. I would take elements of the Citadel DLC and sprinkle them across Mass Effect 3, even Mass Effect 2, or even the original Mass Effect. I touched my microphone there. You heard it. I apologize. But I would not have it. I would not, ask for $5 or $10 or $15 for how much it was worth when it came out for a DLC like that. Artistic integrity. That's why I wouldn't do it. I know a lot of people love the Citadel DLC, but it's not my cup of tea. Again, Chapelmon has an excellent, like you can see him at the top of the screen above me. It says Chapelmon. That's his name. So you can go to his YouTube channel there. Chapelmon Mass Effect Citadel DLC. He has a much better breakdown of the DLC than I do. But frankly, yeah, it's unneeded, right? If you fix the ending, as I just think I fixed it, there's no need for this. Yeah, you should have the slideshow at the end. What happened to people who lived and died? Who lived or die? That's perfectly fine. But you can have your golden ending. You can have your bittersweet ending, right? One or more people die because you were not prepared, etc., etc. Right? Kind of very similar to what will happen in the ending of Mass Effect 2 if you don't have the loyalty of your crew members, or you assign them to wrong jobs, then they die, right? Recreate that in a much bigger sense at the end of Mass Effect 3. People say, well, aren't you repeating the Battle of the Citadel? Well, you already have a repeat because you have the Battle of the Citadel in the first game, and then you have the Cerberus coup in the second. It's kind of the same, except that you're fighting Cerberus in one, and then let's get Geth and Saren. And while I found the Cerberus coup from a mechanical perspective, and even from a story perspective of how Cerberus, people that had traders and stuff like that, interesting. Overall, it doesn't make any sense. It's completely unnecessary, and it should be a final battle on the Citadel with much bigger scale, right? An all for nothing battle, kind of like the impression. One of the reasons why the Battle Citadel is so impressive is the stakes are very high. It's all or nothing. And that should be the same way. You don't get, they try to do that on Earth, but it doesn't work, right? And having Shepard get hit by this giant beam and somehow surviving, but, his armor blown, mostly burnt out and second and third degree burns and only a pistol and fighting Marauder shields and all that. No. Again, I think that was designed to make people accept what was going to happen, right? Because people probably have been playing for hours. They're just happy to finish the game, right? And it's like, okay, whatever happens, happens. I just want to finish the game. And so they just sort of bow down to decisions. You don't have to deal with the Deus Ex Machina literally at the end. Yeah, players form more of a connection with the Citadel versus Earth over the course of the series. That's true, right? Um, and so you have to do that. So that takes care of all the things. I might discuss Andromeda in a future stream. It also needs scripting. As for the news, for people who are being watching American news, of course, Nancy's has a new president-elect, uh, President Biden, Joseph Biden. So congratulations, United States, and that we'll see what happens in the few coming days, weeks, months, and even years, of course. And next year we're gonna have a Mass Effect remastered, 2021, early and the first, probably spring of 2021, late winter, spring 2021. We'll see. If it comes out at a reasonable price, I'll buy it and replay it because I'm a fan. I don't expect any real changes other than upscaling of graphics and the like, textures, but it'll be good to revisit Mass Effect universe and play all the DLC in one package. So we'll see. Probably be a massive download, but we'll see. So thank you, much everybody in chat. There'll be the VOD here, and also I will upload it soon to YouTube, to my channel, which is Lesson Learned channel on YouTube. And I'll probably be doing more of these every Saturday night. So if you want to join us and you have ideas and comments, you're more than welcome. So thank you, everybody, for coming. And as always, we'll see you when we see you. Bye-bye, everybody.